Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Gomwalk, and I'll be the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Ms. Cerise Waiters is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and a signing sheet is on the table on the side of the room. Please be sure to sign in for our records, and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item you are here for. This public hearing is being held to consider 5 appeals from property owners that were assessed fines for excessive or illegal pruning of trees, for not planting a replacement tree, or for illegally removing a tree. They are order number 200665 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1380 Greenwich Street. Order number 200666 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1760 Alabama Street. Order number 200667 to consider the removal of 9 significant trees with replacement on private property at 36 Amber Drive. Order number 200668 to consider the removal of 25 street trees with replacement adjacent to 950 Golden Gate Avenue, 3 street trees on Turk Street, and 22 street trees on Golden Gate Avenue. Order number 200669 to consider the removal of 7 street trees with replacement adjacent to 600 Columbus Avenue. The trees are adjacent to Washington Square Park along the Columbus Avenue frontage of the park. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works to make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you of them. Therefore, if you want to be notified, please sign in. The hearing will proceed as follows for each case. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I'll allow the property owner or the appellant to speak, and any member of the public or witness who wants to speak. Then the Department Public Works, again, if the department would like to address any comments, and then the property owner or the appellant, again, if that person has any rebuttals. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it means the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell will signal that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing, and I'd like to begin first with order number 200665 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1380 Greenwich Street. Public Works.
Good evening. My name is Brian Ong. I'm with Bureau of Urban Forestry, Public Works. You're here for the tree removal hearing, February 25th, 2019. Just a quick little thing. Public Works, the strategic plan, our #1 goal is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure for the public right-of-way. Street Tree SF is a new program that San Francisco has adopted, pruning trees, maintaining trees in the public right-of-way, and sidewalks surrounding the area. We have a tree pruning schedule online that you can take a look at. It just shows where we're going to be pruning in the up-and-coming months. So for order number 200665, 1380 Greenwich Street, it has been postponed until March 2019, so the next hearing. So we'll move on to the second one, 1760 Alabama Street. It's the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 1760 Alabama Street. The staff has denied the removal and the owner has appealed. So this is a weeping bottle brush tree. in front of 1760 Alabama Street. Normally, these are very tough, vigorous trees, and they can withstand a lot of pruning and other factors. Here's a few pictures. It's got poor structure. You could see some tear outs. At first, Public Works approved or denied the removal of the tree, but based on further assessment, you could see towards the top of the tree there are some new tear outs and limb failures of the tree. You could see these previous wounds, tear outs of the tree as well. Here's a few more photos of bad structure. A few more of the, the limbs. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, Public Works, first of all, denied the removal of the tree, but after further assessment, we have approved the tree to be removed.
Excuse me, so has the removal been approved or denied?
Yes, the removal has been approved.
All right.
So if the homeowners here, if they want to speak.
Is the property owner appellant here? Yeah. You may speak. Step up to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Tim Shiner. I live with my wife Kelly and my children at 1760 Alabama Street. I guess I had not received any notification that the removal and replacement had been approved, so I was here to argue to remove it, but I guess I don't have to. And I would be interested to know what's the timing on getting official.
Sir, you may speak to me.
Okay, what's the timing on getting the official approval, or how does it work now that it's been approved?
Any further questions?
That's my question.
All right, you may have a seat, and the department, Brian.
Brian Ong, Urban Forestry. Yeah, sorry about the confusion. We kind of made the decision today when we were reviewing the case, just taking a look at more pictures, and reviewing newer pictures that were taken last week. As far as removal of the tree,
Right.
It's still the same process where you will make the recommendation to remove the tree, and then we'll go ahead and issue a permit once that determination has been made.
Thank you. Sir, if you wish one more comment, you may step to the mic if you have further comments. All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, sir. Step to the mic and state your name for the record, please.
My name is David Becker. My question is, what is this tree going to be replaced with? How soon is it going to be replaced? And how long will it just remain empty?
Brian Ong, Urban Forestry. So the tree, we will work with the homeowner to pick the correct species once the determination has been made. And then, the homeowner will have, I think it's 60 days to remove the tree and replant it. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? All right, thank you. We shall move on to the next item. Order number 200667 to consider the removal of 9 significant trees with replacement on private property at 36 Amber Drive.
Brian Ong, Urban Forestry, 36 Amber Drive, removal of 9 street trees with replacement adjacent to 36 Amber Drive. The staff has approved the removal and public has protested. So this is just, excuse me, a site plan of the existing property. So this is construction related. They plan on building affordable housing on this lot. They plan to remove 9 significant trees within the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way is 7 feet. So those 9 trees are within 10 feet of the public right-of-way, so they do require a permit to remove. So here are a few pictures. There's about maybe 7 eucalyptus trees, I believe, in this stand, and 2 Monterey pines. You could see there's a few. They're all over the place. There's 2 pines on the right, and there's 1 giant eucalyptus in the back and 1 in the front, and then a few smaller ones kind of just hidden in the whole area. You can see closer pictures of the trunks and the postings of the trees. Here's another photo of the pine trees, and a side view of the driveway and then the other eucalyptus. So normally, you know, if this were like a street tree on the sidewalk, we would try and have the developer work around the tree as much as possible. But because this is on private property, we do take a look at each tree individually and assess the tree. As far as, you know, when they're doing construction, we have to take into account all the excavating and everything that will harm the trees while they're doing that if we were to make them work around certain amount of trees. So, you know, with excavating around the trees and doing different grades, the trees become more susceptible to damage and failure and, you know, insects. For the Monterey pine, you know, bark beetles and pine pitch canker. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, Urban Forestry has approved the removal of the 9 trees.
Thank you. Is the applicant or appellant here for 36 Amber Drive? Sir, could you state your name for the record? You have up to 3 minutes.
Applicant.
Amber Drive?
Yes. Do you want the appellant? Do you want the applicant or the appellant?
I want the applicant.
I'm the applicant.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Dunn. I'm with Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco. We are the developer of the 36 Amber Drive project. Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco is a nonprofit affordable housing developer that builds homes and sustains affordable homeownership opportunities for working families in Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. Our mission is to provide as many homes as possible for the missing middle who have been priced out of market rate housing yet make too much to qualify for affordable rental homes. This project will be 100% affordable. We are a self-help ownership program requiring our partner families to provide 500 hours of sweat equity. Each family is qualified for a zero down, zero interest mortgage provided by Habitat. We ensure the long-term affordability of the homes through deed restrictions and buyback provisions. Habitat remains one of the only providers of affordable home ownership opportunities in Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. The Amber Drive property was donated to Habitat by Michael and Bridget Seligman, the heirs of the original owner, Dr. Maria Kolich. Maria's wish was that the property be used to provide affordable housing for the greatest number of families possible, which is how Habitat has approached the design of this site. The proposed project consists of 3 new buildings with a total of 8 single-family condominium homes ranging from 2 to 4 bedrooms and targeted to families earning 60 to 80% of the area average median income, or area median income. Habitat is working hard to be a good neighbor and work with local community on this project. We have held community meetings, provided updates, and are developing a project that fits in with the current community's fabric while supplying much needed affordable housing in line with the community's and the mayor's goals. The nature of the proposed project requires the entire parcel to be cleared and graded to accept the new homes. The existing trees on site are predominantly non-native eucalyptus. Several neighbors have asked us to remove the trees as soon as possible. Concerns that have been expressed to us about the trees include there being a fire hazard. They are non-native. They are harboring a large population of rats and other rodents, and their litter and oils impact other adjacent properties. As part of the project, Habitat has committed to planting 5 new trees across the front of the property, and we will continue to seek opportunities to add additional trees as the design is finalized. We will also conduct a nesting study prior to the removal of the trees if removal is to occur during the nesting season. Having to preserve these trees would be a tremendous blow to our mission. We would end up with significantly fewer affordable units to offer to the community. Cost per unit would be materially higher, and our ability to meet our affordability targets would be compromised. The desperate need for affordable housing in the city of San Francisco compels us to pursue our mission. We respectfully request that the Public Works deny the appeal and grant us the tree removal permit. Thank you very much, and I have some additional information that I'll submit. Thank you.
The appellant, and I apologize, say your name, please, for the record. And
I'm actually not the appellant. I'm supporting.
Oh, is there any appellant here to speak regarding this item? Anyone protesting this item? All right, anyone from the public, feel free to speak. State your name and speak.
Could I have the overhead? So I'm Toby Morris with Kerman Morris Architects, working with the project sponsor to make this project happen. As Peter mentioned, we're doing 8 units of affordable housing. You have this sort of curved front setback. You can see up here, and the green in the back is the rear setback, and the yellow is outlining the 8 units of housing. We're building 3-bedroom family housing, and we need to excavate for the garages. This is an overlay of the existing trees on the proposed site plan, and you can see those 9 eucalyptus and Monterey pine in the front of, say, half or a third of the lot would make it impossible to develop this lot. We're working with Landscape Architects IDS to landscape the front of the lot. You can see there'll be 5 new trees planted in the front setbacks. This neighborhood has a very small sidewalk, and so street trees are not a factor in the neighborhood context. We're proposing 5 trees consisting of paperbark tea tree and primrose tree, both of which are approved trees in the city's list. This is an image of the project with the trees basically out of their pots into the site. We'll also have ground cover in front. And this is an image of the trees as they mature more. These trees will mature to about 30 feet with canopies of 15 to 20 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, sir. Please step to the mic and state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Josh Klipp, and the item, I believe, was proposed as 9 removals with replacements, but it sounds like there's only going to be 5 replacements. So I was wondering if there will be any consideration for an in lieu fee for the 4 that will not be replaced. And then additionally, I thought I heard Urban Forestry talk about there being a 7-foot sidewalk, which is the minimum that's required for a 3-foot basin and 4-foot clearance. So I'm wondering why there's not consideration for trees being planted along the 7-foot sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works.
Brian Ong, Urban Forestry. We will take a look into see if we can have them plant in the 7-foot sidewalk, and we'll discuss at a later time to see if any in lieu fees will be assessed for failure to plant the remaining trees.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Okay, thank you. We now move to item number 4, order number 200668, to consider the removal of 25 street trees with replacement adjacent to 950 Golden Gate Avenue, 3 street trees on Turk Street, and 22 street trees on Golden Gate Avenue.
Urban Forestry, excuse me, Brian Ong, Urban Forestry. So the removal of 25 street trees with replacement adjacent to 950 Golden Gate Avenue. Again, there's 3 trees on Turk Street and 22 street trees on Golden Gate Ave. The staff has approved the removal request from the Recreation and Park Department, and the public has protested. So just to give you an overview, the park is renovating, doing a whole new renovation on the park. And in order for them to obtain power, PG needs to trench along Golden Gate in the sidewalk to run power to the park. The top picture is Golden Gate Avenue, starting from the corner and then all the way down 22 trees. And then the bottom picture is on Turk Street. Those are 3 silk oaks. And I could talk about those later. So here's the first tree. A lot of the trees have, or the sidewalk has been repaired, and maintenance. This is a maintenance tree. They generally do not do well with root pruning. As you can see, there's some rotting towards the base of the trunk. There were also eucalyptus that are no longer present, but all these trees along Golden Gate were basically growing underneath those eucalyptus trees, which made them difficult to grow. So a lot of them have poor structure and are leaning into the road. So there's the first tree. Here's a couple more pictures of the second and third tree, just not being able to grow to their full potential and leaning more towards the road.
These the trees on Turk or Golden Gate?
These are the trees on Golden Gate Avenue.
Golden Gate Ave.
Here are a few photos. A lot of them have poor structure. Here's tree number 6 is a Chinese pistache. Tree number 7 is a maton. You can see that they're all kind of stunted in growth. There's no longer any more eucalyptus on the left-hand side, but the trees will never be able to grow to the potential that they could have. Here's a few photos of more Chinese pistache trees, poor structure, a few more. Another maton and Chinese pistache tree. A lot of the pistache trees, they were vandalized at an early age, so the top portion of the tree was vandalized, making it pretty much impossible for it to grow to its full capacity. Here's a few more. Tree 17, and then again, it starts on the 900 block of Golden Gate Ave. You can see that a lot of these major roots were cut during when they repaired the sidewalk. A few more trees, more roots cut. And then tree 16, yeah, you see the roots cut, and it's main. It should be, the canopy should be full.
6 or 6.
This is tree 6 on the 900 block of Golden Gate.
Okay.
So I believe there were 16 trees on the 800 block. It's all one full block. 800 and 900 block are combined. So there were 16 trees on the 800 block, and then 6 trees on the 900 block. These are the 3 silk oaks on Turk Street. These actually no longer exist. They were approved to be removed. There was a proposed building to go in place where those trees are. So to be consistent, we approved the removal of the trees. The building was removed without taking into consideration of the trees. So you could see here a lot of the trees' roots are exposed, which can be a hazard, and so we had them remove the trees right away to keep them from falling over into the street. So Public Works will be issuing a notice of violation to the Rec and Park Department at a later date. But to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, we have approved the removal of the 25 trees. Yeah.
Thank you. Is the appellant, property owner, or responsible party here? Anyone wish to speak, please step to the mic and state your name for the record.
Good evening. I think I could say good evening now. My name is Marion Costin. I'm the project manager for Rec and Park, and I'm representing Recreation and Parks Department and request to continue to remove the trees. I have an earlier presentation here just to take you through the renovation of the park. This is an image from Golden Gate Avenue, and if you can imagine, if Octavia existed on this property, it would run through more or less in this area. Okay, so just to orient you where we are, Jefferson Park, Historic Park is on the north of this area, and then on the south is what we call Margaret Hayward Playground, and also James P. Lang Ball Field. It also shares a property with Department of Emergency Management, who has very high security in the area. What I'm showing you here is an aerial view, and in red it's outlined the location of the trees, so it makes it a little bit easier to see where they are. And this here shows the proposed location from where PG&E is going to give us power for the property. You may be aware that PG&E and PUC now are working under contract to try to figure out the way to provide service to other city agencies, and this was a joint effort with PUC and PG&E. And if you can see on the southern side of the property, on the right hand is where Goff Street and Golden Gate intersect. That's a location for where PG&E is going to be providing power to the property. And they actually said that we had to go through the sidewalk to be able to provide power to the actual building, which is on the south side of the street. And then you can see it's just a red dotted line. There's a few boxes in between their vaults underground, and then it moves right north on a right-hand turn into the building. And I may not need to go through the rest, which is just kind of showing the progression from, I want to say, Golden Gate on the west side, and the trees that are circled are the trees that are going to be removed. I'd like to say that we've been working with Brian from Urban Forestry and went through all of the trees on the property to identify which ones needed to be removed and which ones could remain, not only because of their health, but also because they would be impacted by the project. So it was really, I want to say about a year. Is that time up or 30? Okay, great. So, and then these are just some images that show the request that actually came from planning to widen the sidewalk in front of the entrances to the park and also to create more visibility. So the trees that are not related to the PG&E power are related to either Buff, who has actually said that they needed to be removed, or they were asked to give us more space.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, you have any rebuttal? Anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Please step to the mic, state your name for the record.
Overhead, please. My name is John Nolte. I'm here as the appellant for the removal of the 25 trees. The footprint on this picture is the length of Golden Gate, and the vault, as she just pointed out, is not the length of Golden Gate, so that does not conclude what this says on all the trees, which shows there on the map that was put up on the on each tree. So I have a concern about misrepresentation of the sign that was quoted on 25 trees, saying that they all are going to be removed because of, as it states right here, for the renovation of the park. Then the next issue is the trippet disease. Well, we've had that issue with trippet disease since for a number of years, and I don't see why Park and Rec has not taken care of that or deal with the disease. That's the other issue they put on the notice of why it's being removed. So the trees that they say are on the property or to remove are moped trees, and those trees are still on the Friends of Urban Forest list to be planted. So until the Park and Rec comes up with a better plan to deal with the 25 trees, the community wants them to stay and protect during the playground improvement project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? State your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Nolte, no relations. I am the Executive Director of Alliance for a Better District 6. A number of years ago, this was in District 6, these trees. And our membership is opposed to any tree removals until all the protections are sought out to keep the trees, and we are, before they just take them out. A set of benchmarks need to be offered to the community to allow a better understanding of how the city is making their decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? State your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Josh Clipp, and I'll need the overhead. I was made aware of this removal, and I hadn't heard about it until recently, and so I went online and I looked at Rec and Parks materials that they had put out to the public, and I did not see anything about tree removal in those plans that were a part of those public meetings. So I decided to go and take a look at the site myself, and I saw all of the sidewalk trees, and I can certainly understand based on the health and needing to trench and that sort of thing. But then I turned around and I looked at the park so far. And what I want to just show is what I saw. And the reason that I bring it up here is I know that Public Works doesn't have jurisdiction to tell Rec and Park what to do, but you do have the ability to order the largest and most immediate restatured trees along the sidewalk. So just a little, very quickly. I don't know how to use this.
There you go.
So here are some of the trees that were at this park. As a volunteer planting leader with Friends of the Urban Forest for over 9 years, I have a pretty good idea of what it takes for a tree to establish in this city and to grow that large, and those are pretty magnificent. And here's what those trees look like now. Rec and Park has utterly failed to use its imagination in how it can preserve the trees for this plan. It's failed the city by doing this carnage to these 13 large trees in that park, and I would respectfully request that Public Works do what it can to make up for what's been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Patsy Ferguson, and I also just learned about this actually before I'm here for another item. But it just in listening, they're taking out 25 trees. I didn't hear any mention of trees going in. So where is the policy that when you take out a tree, you have to replace that tree? And also, when people go to a park, they don't want wider sidewalks. They want grass and trees. That's what parks are. So I feel like this is not a very good redesign if it's taking out a lot of trees in order to put in buildings and sidewalks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's Natalie Down, and I have a question as to why the sidewalk needs to be trenched. Is it possible for the road to have the power put in instead, so the trees don't, the ones that are still remaining, still don't have to come up?
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No, all right. Department of Public Works, do you have any further rebuttals?
Brian Ong, Department of Public Works, Urban Forestry. We are working with Rec and Park with replacement trees. As far as power, I believe Park and Rec is working with PG&E to see if they can come up with another alternative instead of trenching along the whole sidewalk on Golden Gate Ave.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to item number 200669 to consider the removal of 7 street trees with replacement adjacent to 600 Columbus Avenue. The trees adjacent to Washington Square Park along the Columbus Avenue frontage of the park. Public Works, please state your name for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Carla Short, San Francisco Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'm going to take this case for my colleague, in large part because I have been involved with the assessment of these trees over time, which has led us to tonight's hearing. So we have initiated the removal of 7 trees adjacent to Washington Square Park on Columbus Avenue, 600 block of Columbus. And before I go into the details about each specific tree, I just want to take a moment to kind of give a little context about why these trees have been assessed and the department's guidelines for assessing this particular species of tree. So in 2014, our director issued tree removal criteria for ficus trees in particular. And the reason for that was that this has recently become the predominant species that's experiencing large limb failures and tree failures in San Francisco. And the director was concerned about public safety and issued these guidelines. So when we are assessing this particular species of tree, we look at a number of criteria. And I'll just quickly go at highlighting some of these criteria which are available on our website. One item is competing or codominant stems with acute angles of attachment with or without included bark. Failure history, so previous limb failures at a point of codominance or multiple previous limb failures within the canopy. Live crown ratio, this relates to the size of the tree's live crown to its total height. The reason that this matters is because trees with a low live crown ratio tend to have heavy end weight on the limbs, which makes them more prone to large limb failures. Canopy vigor, so we have seen decline in canopy in this species as well. Large limbs that have been previously damaged by vehicles. Root pruning history, so any tree that's had roots cut in order to repair the sidewalk. Canopy balance, so trees that have been heavily pruned on one side, usually due to buildings on the other side of the tree, or trees that are very large stature. So if a tree is taller than 50 feet, and then additionally utility conflicts. So the reason I go through those criteria is because they are relevant for each of the trees that has been assessed today. And I do want to just note the initial requests for assessment of these trees have come over the years, mostly initiated by the community. But Public Works has been putting a special focus on assessing these trees recently, again, due to the increase in failures that we have seen with the species. That dovetailed with an upcoming project in the park that will be closing the park for renovation. And so because of that renovation project, the park managers and the Friends of Washington Square Park asked us to reassess the ficus at this time as well. So that's kind of the background details. I do want to just note, even with these criteria and with requests to assess trees, we are still looking at every tree individually and assessing each tree. So even though they may be of a certain species, we're not simply condemning all trees of that species in San Francisco. We look at every tree individually. This first slide really just explains that the numbers, what we call the tree sites, are off by 1, because the initial tree that was previously located on the corner was removed previously and did go through a public notification process prior to that. It had both a limb failure and it was interfering with the muni wires. So we count our trees with the flow of traffic. So the first tree that you see in this is actually tree 2, tree 1 having been removed previously. And I think what you can see with this is there is an imbalanced canopy on this tree because it was probably being shaded out by the tree that was removed last year. In addition, this is a perfect example of what we call codominant stems. So you can see that both of these large branches emanate from the same point on the trunk, and because they are almost equal in size, that is a weak union of attachment. Unfortunately, this species is prone to what's called decurrent form, which means you have multiple branches that emanate from the same trunk, and that's inherently weaker than a tree that has a single dominant stem or an excurrent form with one strong leader. Again, this is that second tree showing the other side, which has those multiple branches emanating from one point and showing the acute angle of attachment that was referred to in the guidelines. And again, an acute angle of attachment simply means that the point at which the branches are attached to one another is a sharp angle, and it is more likely than not that there is not strong wood holding those two pieces together. If there's a wider angle of attachment, then there's more strong wood holding it. You can imagine it like this, right? And then this is also that tree that has interfering with the muni lines. And I should note that the MTA has been pushing us to assess trees along their muni lines as well to reduce conflicts with buses as well as outages on their system. And another codominant and acute angle of attachment. So this is the second of the 7 trees that we assessed. Again, here, with all of these trees, I'm going to be repeating myself, but I just want to make the point clear to the public that we looked at each tree individually. This one also, you see, there's one split with, 2 branches on the one side and 4 or 5 branches on the other side. You can see that union is tight. It has that acute angle of attachment of those 2 main stems, but then those stems further branch with also the same problems. The photo on the right really emphasizes what that means when you've got an acute angle, and it probably has included bark, which means that there's bark growing essentially between that union, between those 2 branches, and that bark is not solid wood, so that is not holding the tree up. So there's very little solid wood that's holding that branch in place. Just emphasizing again that there are multiple branches emanating from all these multiple stems, which are inherently going to be weaker than branches with strong, wider unions. This is the third tree that's still at the site, and here we have 4 or 5 stems all at the same union point. Again, looking at it from the other side, you can see that some of those branches are really not connected with a lot of solid wood holding them together, as is evidenced on the left side photo.
Yeah.
So tree site number 5, this is actually probably the best of the bunch in terms of the branch unions. At the main stem, they are a little bit wider. But when you look at the other side of the tree, you can see that it is problematic. And we divide into multiple stems. The other challenge with this particular tree is that the London plane tree in the park, which is much, much larger, has begun to suppress the canopy of this tree. And here's just evidence of a previous limb failure on this tree. Tree number 5. So again, we just have this classic codominance emanating from the same point with a sharp angle of attachment, which it's not a great photo, so you can't see, but on the right side, where that branch is coming out is quite acute. That's a little bit of a better photo of it. Tree number 6. Again, unfortunately, all of these trees are showing these structural flaws that are very typical of this species. And then tree number 7, we see where we really have, I think it's 6 or 7 stems all emanating from the same point. And again, when we have those seams where it looks like a seam on the tree, that's one of those acute angles of attachment. In many cases, it's included bark, and there's not strong wood that's holding those branches together. And then we've also seen, and this is very common for trees along busy corridors, that a number of branches have been struck repeatedly by vehicles. And unfortunately, if they had either been set back in, now the sidewalk is wider, but they used to be right at the curb. This is a bus stop. It's also a busy corridor with many trucks, so we see this is not uncommon in San Francisco. So there's just 2 other notes about this that I'd like to make before we talk a little bit about the positive opportunity that the dramatic removal of all these trees does present. Again, the original requests for assessment of these trees came from the community. We've had over 12 failures on Columbus alone of ficus limbs or trees, whole trees. And we've had, in addition to that, 2 limbs that were, before they failed, struck by vehicles, and we removed them before that they actually failed. So this is something that has in fact been a challenge with this species on this particular corridor in the past. I think what the upside of coordinating the work with Recreation and Park Department, but also removing all of these trees at once presents is an opportunity to create a better pedestrian experience when the replacement trees go in. So this just shows some of the current conditions, which is that we have, because the sidewalk was widened after the trees had been planted originally, we now have a very wide sidewalk at the bus stop and a much smaller sidewalk behind the bus stop. And so many pedestrians end up sort of being scrunched into just the bare minimum of 4 feet path of travel. And it's also impacting the park, so they end up walking on the park area rather than on the sidewalk. A number of the trees that are in their current locations also don't meet our guidelines in terms of their distance from things like muni poles, street lights, and the bus shelter. Now, that in and of itself would never be a cause for removal of a tree, but if the trees are removed, it does give us the opportunity to create better spacing with the replacement trees that takes into consideration the new lighting, the pedestrian lighting that's been installed along the area, creating a little bit better spacing with the bus shelter as well as the muni facilities. And as I mentioned, the MTA has been asking us to get better clearance from their facilities. So the existing is basically represented on the left side, and then the proposed replacement trees locations are located on the right side. There's also the species that we have been using as our replacement tree along Columbus Avenue is the Brisbane box, which is the evergreen species at the bottom of the page. There has been interest expressed by the park and the Friends of Washington Square Park to establish the park as more of a public realm by doing a different species of tree. And this was done at the North Beach Library, which is not far from this site, and the rec center adjacent to the library, and the species chosen there were ginkgo trees. So although we normally replace the ficus with the Brisbane box, which is another large statured evergreen tree, ginkgo trees will get big over time, and they could create sort of a identifying feature that creates a sense of place for the park. And it would also tie it in with some of the other public realm buildings nearby, like the library and the rec center. The reason, again, that we were asked to assess these trees at this moment in time is because the park is undergoing some renovation and will be closed for some irrigation repair. This just illustrates the kind of the distribution of the ficus near the rec center and at the library, at the top left of the slide, and then showing that, creating ficus along the edge of the park would kind of tie in those public facilities and give people a sense of space that this is kind of a more unique location, public realm. So my colleague who is involved with the design of this project is also here. I don't know if she wants to say any more about the design aspects.
Yes, good evening. Lizzie Hirsch with Public Works. I am actually involved in the park renovation project, as well as was involved in the library and DiMaggio Park. And so introducing the ginkgos actually was really this idea of breaking up the Brisbane box that goes along Columbus and really acknowledging a sort of uniqueness to public buildings. It's really one of the only public sections of the whole Columbus area. So you're going to see a symbol with these ginkgos being aligned along the whole Columbus edge at the park, and then also at the library and the park in the subsequent block. So, and additionally, what's happening in the park side is there are very significant sycamore trees along the edge of the park that between the sycamore and the ficus fought quite a bit and wasn't giving proper space to the sycamore. And the ginkgo is a much more upright tree, unlike the ficus, so this was thought to be a better kind of combination of trees so that they're not fighting each other and they actually can coexist in a better way. So with that, I'll close my comments.
I did just want to make one last comment, which is, although we do have limited resources for replanting trees, which many people have heard me say on many public occasions. Whenever we are removing a large number of trees in a geographic area, we're making a concerted effort to replace those trees in a very timely manner. I know that there is not a lot of trust of our department. Frankly, we have failed to do that in the past, but we have some good examples where we've been successful in doing that more recently, and it's an opportunity, I feel, for us to build that trust with the community, but we're making a commitment that after the trees, if the trees are removed, we would go in essentially immediately afterwards, perform the necessary sidewalk repairs. We can shift those basins a little bit closer to the curb. They would still be set in, but that'll create more of that sidewalk space for people to walk next to the park, which our ADA coordinator is also enthusiastic about in terms of getting better access. And we will then replant the 7 replacement trees. And we've committed to doing all of that within a 3-month time frame, which should be within the range of the time that the park is is closed for the irrigation renovation. So ideally, when the park reopens, this work would also be complete, and it would be a completed project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone from the property owner appellant wish to speak regarding this item? Rec Park, anyone from Rec Park wish to speak regarding this item? Please state your name for the mic, for the record.
Good evening. My name is Levi Conover. I'm the project manager for the irrigation project at Washington Square. So we have been working with the community and with Public Works to coordinate this effort. A large part of...
Excuse me, you with Rec Park? Or
yes,
you
with Rec Park. With Rec Park. A large part of the coordination on this was community concern just about construction impact to the neighborhood overall, and so Carla was very willing to work with us on the timing of this project. We also felt this gave a good opportunity given the improvements that are being made to the park. The spacing of the new trees allows us to celebrate the park entrances a little bit better. So the I don't know if we can go back. You can see there's so we just recently renovated the children's playground, so we'll actually be moving a couple of trees to either side of that entrance at the children's playground, and then also a couple trees that are on the mid-block of Columbus to just to better kind of align with those. So we are supportive of...
When you say public playground, some of us don't know where that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's on the upper left-hand corner of the diagram.
All right. Thank you.
And so we are supportive of the removal and replacement. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Judy Irving. I'm a documentary filmmaker, best known for The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. I'm also the president of the Telegraph Hill Dwellers, the oldest and largest community organization in the neighborhood, with 500 members. There are many reasons why we oppose the wholesale removal of the 7 ficus along Columbus bordering Washington Square Park. And I'd like to talk about one of them, the context in which these removals would occur. Could I have the... First, we lost 9 very tall, healthy Canary Island pines and a large olive tree surrounding the playground due to contractor negligence and the astonishing lack of oversight by DPW and RPD. Only 7 trees replaced those 10 mature trees, and it will take decades before the replacements provide even a fraction of the canopy that we lost. Next on the chopping block is a lovely My-10, which welcomes people to the park at the corner of Union and Columbus. This tree and a very large stone pine at Union and Stockton are slated for removal because they are deemed hazardous. Add to these losses the 7 ficus, which you can see in the photo looking west, and you have a perfect storm of devastation, leaving the entire western side of the park, which is supposed to be leafy and comforting for residents and visitors, like a bombed-out shell. Please try to imagine this view without the My-10 on the left and the row of ficus running from the center to the right. We seem to be moving backwards to a time where the park had no trees. You have $19 million. Surely, a small portion of that amount could be spent on preservation rather than removal. Please reconsider the context in which these ficus trees would be removed. And remember, springtime may be prime time for construction projects in the park, but it's also the height of nesting season for birds. In the future, I don't want this to be the only place a wild parrot can perch in Washington Square Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Thank you. Thank you. Sir, please state your name for the record.
My name is David Becker. I'm a board member of Telegraph Hill Dwellers, and I live a few blocks away from these beautiful trees. We're faced with uncertain times, hotter temperature, uncertain water supplies, sporadic rainstorms, and annual fires causing smoke to sit above our beautiful city for many weeks at a time. To be a resilient city, we need to take care of the infrastructure that protects us from these unpredictable conditions. Our trees are our shade during hot days. They reduce stormwater runoff, and they clean our air 24 hours a day. Stormwater runoff washes chemicals like oil, gasoline, and litter from the street surfaces into our water supply, bay, and ocean. Drinking water, aquatic life, and the health of our entire ecosystem is affected by this process. Trees act as mini reservoirs, intercepting and holding rain on leaves, branches, and bark. Over the next 20 years, these mature trees would have intercepted a total of 900,000 gallons of stormwater. Air pollution is a serious health threat that causes asthma, coughing, headaches, respiratory, heart disease, and cancer. We've all experienced how poor air can affect the city's livability. All of San Francisco is impacted when smoke and dust levels are considered unhealthy. We know that the urban forest can mitigate the health effects of poor air quality by absorbing pollutants like ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide, intercepting particulate matter less than 10 microns like ash, dust, and smoke, and of course, releasing oxygen through photosynthesis. Over the next 20 years, these trees would have reduced carbon dioxide levels by a total of 66,000 pounds. Our trees are also traffic infrastructure. Trees have been shown to reduce road rage and slow speeding drivers. In car pedestrian fatalities, speed was a factor in 30% of the cases. It has been shown that trees placed along the streets brought down average speeds by up to 8 miles per hour. San Francisco is currently aiming for 0 pedestrian deaths by 2024. We need to take care of all the infrastructure that helps us accomplish this goal. Just as streets, sidewalks, sewers, public buildings, recreation facilities are part of our community's infrastructure, so are trees. They need to be treated as such. When we have poor air quality, we do not remove the air filters in our city. When we have strong winds and rains, we do not remove our windshields and water filters. Instead, we need to be doubling down on planting a record number of trees, and more importantly, taking care of the trees we've already planted. They've been working their entire lives to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record.
Pauline Craig. I've lived in North Beach for 50 years. I live right 2 blocks from the park. And let me tell you, those trees are noble, stalwart, protective, beautiful. The spacing's fine, the sidewalk's fine, it's easy to walk past. They stop pollutants coming from automobile exhaust. And they've already taken, Judy's right, they've already taken all these trees out from the park, from the little children's park, close between the church and the park. They're gone, and it's barren and naked over there. But here's the thing, look at nature. My arms come out from my sides, my legs come out from their sides. Those trees are designed by nature. That's the way nature wants those trees. So if they're at an angle or whatever, talk to nature. That's the way nature wanted them. If the branches, intersect electric wires, trim them. Don't tear down the trees. That's ridiculous. If there's a branch or something that needs to be removed, somebody should watch the trees, come and inspect them every so often. If there's something dead, a limb that's dead, cut it. Don't take the whole tree down. But we go to that park, this is our nature. This is our only nature for many of us who live around the park. This is nature. That's it for us. So if you take down those trees and renovate the rest of the park, denude it, we have no nature. This is it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item?
Good evening. My name is Lance Carnes, and I represent myself and over 500 people who signed a petition wanting to preserve the trees. And here's a few letters that were also submitted. So as the previous speaker said, Washington Square is a very important part of our neighborhood. It's the locus of everything in the neighborhood. I stood out and had people sign petitions, and I ran into all my neighbors, every visitor to Fisherman's Wharf, because everyone walks by Washington Square Park. And of course, when they walk by, this is this dark line here indicates the edge of the sidewalk. So these trees that are between this, in the sidewalk and the street are the street trees, and these are the ficus trees that we're talking about. And in this diagram, I don't know if you can see it, but all the ones that are black have already been removed. And these 7 trees are slated to be removed. And what will happen if that all occurs is the sum total of those trees is 1/3 of the trees in or around the park. So and we stood out in the, my friends and I stood out next to the ficus trees over the last 2 months and asked people to sign our petition. And at the same time, we spoke with them. And a lot of these people had grown up in the neighborhood and had lived with these trees since they were wee children, and now they're adults. So it's an important part of our neighborhood. Of course, they were alarmed and upset that the trees were being removed. And people always used to ask us, so why are the trees being removed? And we showed them the notice. I'm not sure you can make it out here. It's kind of it's just posted on a tree. This is removal of 7 trees with replacement. No good reason. So we weren't able to tell them anything. Anyway, so the Washington Square Park, east of the trees, will be renovated sometime this year. And one thing that is puzzling is it's not clear why the ficus removal has to be done at the same time as the park renovation. The ficus are not technically in the park, and it seems renovation could proceed with the ficus in place. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak regarding this matter? Please state your name for the record.
Okay, let me just get my little act together here. This is just words. My name's Patsy Ferguson, and I'm here to protest the removal of the 7 ficus trees on Columbus on the side of Washington Square Park. I'm a resident of SF and a tour guide who begins my walking tours in this park, made beautiful by our tall, mature, leafy trees. Cities across the country know that green spaces are beneficial. They positively impact tourism, air quality, mental health, physical health, climate change, property values, and more. But while most cities are working to expand their green spaces, San Francisco is cutting down trees at an alarming rate. Current plans include the removal of 19 ficus at the library, 82 ficus at the Bayswater treatment plant, 29 ficus in Hayes Valley, 25 trees at the park mentioned earlier today, and 7 more in North Beach. We need our Public Works Department to adopt a new and different tree policy that takes care of the trees instead of cutting them down. Tree 1 has already, I'm sorry. Tree 1 has already been removed. Maybe you could back up so we could see the picture, or just, there we go. Without notice or opportunity for public comment, despite the fact that sidewalk trees are public resources which belong to citizens. When I saw a worker cutting down the tree, I asked why and was told it was interfering with the bus lines, a problem which could have been fixed with strategic pruning. The removal happened a year ago, and no replacement has been planted. We have just this barren square of dirt where a tall, leafy, green, healthy tree once stood. Trees 2 through 8 were abandoned by the Public Works Department 13 years ago. A request for all public records pertaining to these trees showed they were being pruned regularly or inspected until 2006. Why did that stop? It's not acceptable for DPW to stop maintaining trees and then come back 13 years later and say we're going to cut them all down. As a citizen, I want my government to take care of my trees with a regular schedule of pruning, inspecting, and maintenance. The ficus trees along Columbus were planted to beautify San Francisco to benefit the residents and visitors. Please don't destroy this legacy. Please take care of our trees, and also ask Park and Rec to reconsider removal of this incredible Italian stone pine and the Mayten. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please state your name, please.
My name is Josh Klipp. In 2014, San Francisco rolled out an urban forest plan. This plan acknowledged that at 13.7%, we have the worst urban canopy of any major city in the United States. That plan proposed to add 50,000 street trees over the next 20 years, or on the average, 2,500 trees per year. Since then, the city has failed to meet this goal every single year. According to the Urban Forest Council reports, in 2015, the city fell short of that goal by nearly 1,500 trees. In 2016, by 2,200 trees. In 2017, by 2,400 trees. And in the last year, our urban canopy grew by one single tree. At this rate of growth, San Francisco may meet its urban canopy goal in approximately 140 years. Phase 4 of the city's plan covers Rec and Park. Rec and Park's goal is to replace every tree removed with 2. They have never met this goal. When Rec and Park began renovations at Washington Square, as it was stated earlier, a contractor damaged the roots of 3 or 4 trees, and rather than just remove the damaged trees, Rec and Park removed 10 large trees and replaced them with 7 smaller ones. Rec and Park provided a diagram to illustrate its renovations, including all proposed tree removals and replacements. This diagram does not show proposed street tree removals. If Rec and Park knew these trees needed to be removed for renovations, it's unclear why that wasn't expressed to the public. And if all goes according to plan, then in less than 1 year, Washington Square will have lost 24 large stature trees and gained a net of 1, which fails to meet both our city's urban forest plan and Rec and Park's goals. Climate change is happening quickly, and trees are one of the cheapest and most cost-effective ways to battle that. But when I press city officials to move faster on improving our urban canopy, I'm often met with the response that making change in the government takes time. I doubt, however, that any of us have 140 years for our street canopy to reach its potential, assuming the planet is still habitable by then. Ficus trees are an estimated 6% of San Francisco's total canopy. They are not perfect, but they are part of a critical municipal infrastructure. We're not asking you to save them for the sake of saving every tree, but in light of everything I just stated, we're asking for some responsible city management and respectfully request that the city reevaluate the removal notice and consider in this order strategic pruning, phased removal, and immediate, not 6 months from now if and when renovations are complete, but immediate replanting of large stature trees that are appropriate to the area and confer the maximum environmental benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Nolte. Again, I'm concerned about another Park and Rec project tonight, Washington Square Park. The 7 ficus trees are being considered for removal have been accessed to the, by a contractor of Park and Rec on July 6, 2017. Why is DPW and the Park and Rec not agreeing with James R. Clark, PhD, certified arborist, WE-0846, registered consultant, arborist number 357. This is his report. On page 10 of this report says that only the branch of each tree needs to be addressed. So the communities of San Francisco request that only that issue be addressed and no removal of the 15 to 20-inch diameter trunk ficus trees be removed. There are currently, I control 2 petitions online dealing with ficus trees with currently over 2,500 signatures, which includes these ficus trees. So I appreciate the weight of those 2,500 people in San Francisco and around the world know that we're looking and we're concerned about what's going on with the ficus trees in San Francisco. And I understand, again, there's approximately 7,000 of them, and if this is how the city responds to their proposal of removing and not putting them back and not also taking care of them correctly, like it says in this report, only removing a branch, then that's wrong. And there needs to be some kind of alternate plan to deal with and stop the removal of ficus trees. Thank you.
Thank you. You state your name for the record, sir.
My name is Michael Nolte. I'm a native San Franciscan, and I'm ashamed to live in San Francisco when trees are being pulled out of by its roots, and then nothing is being replaced. You know, San Francisco relies on clean air. You know, even though we have the wind coming from the ocean, you know, we have to worry about, I live in the downtown area, and we have to worry about air pollution, and trees also help with noise. And when you start taking away the actual nature's way of dealing with noise, pollution, and cleaning the air, you know, you're hurting everybody. And we are going to be experiencing a higher population growth in San Francisco. It just doesn't make sense. Something's going to give. And, you know, we need to be saving our city and planning for the future of our city. And I don't see this as happening with all what's happening here. You have several neighborhood associations here. I happen to be the executive director of a district-wide neighborhood association. And, you know, we don't appreciate seeing this kind of carnage happening to our assets. These are community assets, and how do we wait? How long do we have to wait for replacements? There is no funding normally for these trees to be replaced, and there's usually no timeline given to when they're going to be replaced. And so everybody has suspicions about how the city will act. And so hopefully in your ruling that these issues will be addressed so that the community at large will understand how effectively the city can operate. I think there needs to be maybe an advisory board over this new San Francisco tree plan because they're not doing an effective job. Thank you.
Does anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? state your name.
Hello, Natalie Down. I just wanted to follow on from Judy's comment about context, that and to urge that in your decision you consider the timing and removal of any of these trees addressed today in this hearing, in particular regarding the nesting season for birds, but also the maternity season for bats, which we do have in San Francisco, and they do use the trees for maternity. So I would urge that to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak regarding this item? If there's no one else, does the department wish to address any of the comments that were made?
Just a couple comments. As I mentioned, although we have limited resources for replanting, we have made a commitment that we will be targeting those resources when large number of trees are removed in any given geographic area. And we are committing to replanting these trees within 3 months of their removal. Part of the reason why we do need a little bit of time to get that done is, as I said, we're going to have to be making some sidewalk repairs and shifting the basin. I think from one question that was brought up that I didn't mention in my previous statement has to do with resiliency and climate change. And I would just note that the ginkgo tree has been identified as one of the better trees to plant in the face of climate change because it has a very large range. So it's able to live in our current climatic conditions, but also live in much hotter climatic conditions that the city might be facing in the future. From that perspective, it's a reasonable choice, I think, as a replacement tree. And then the last thing that I did want to mention that I failed to in my opening comments just has to do with the proximity of these ficus trees to the large plane trees that are in the park, which are some of, I think, the most statuesque plane trees in San Francisco. And the replacement locations would provide for less canopy competition. But also because of the upright nature of the proposed replacement trees, there would ideally be no canopy competition. And I think we didn't see any photos with those trees in leaf. They are deciduous species, but they're pretty extraordinary examples of plane trees in San Francisco. And so this would actually provide much better conditions for those trees that are located right at the edge of the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to add any more comments? Yes, sir.
My name is David Becker. Just one comment. The ginkgo trees are beautiful trees. There's no debating that they're gorgeous. They'll grow into magnificent trees, but they grow slowly. Right now we have massive ficus trees that actually do help clean the air. The ginkgo trees will probably take 20 years to reach the same size. And if we're planting the same trees we've been planting all along Washington Square, they're going to start out tiny. It's not even close to what they're replacing.
Thank you. All right, I will now close this item. Are there any general public comments on any of the items that were on the agenda tonight? If you have spoken, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is for those who might have come late or didn't have a chance to speak. Anyone wish to address any items that were on the agenda that was late or didn't get a chance to speak? Okay, if there are no more public comments, I am now closing this hearing. The hearing's now closed. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.